Jace Trent wiped the sweat from his brow as he worked the rusty drill into the rocky surface of the mining colony. The air was thick with dust, and the sun outside barely reached the deep tunnels where he spent most of his days. Life on the mining outpost was hard and lonely. Food was scarce, and luxuries were nearly impossible to come by. Today was no different. His stomach grumbled loudly, reminding him that he had not eaten since morning. He reached into his worn jacket pocket and felt the small, precious piece of chocolate he had saved for himself. It was the last one he had. Jace held it tightly, knowing it might be the only sweetness he would taste for many more days. As he climbed out of the tunnel, the faint sound of coughing reached his ears. Curious and a little worried, he followed the noise to the edge of the settlement, where trash and old equipment were dumped. There, crouched among broken crates, was a small figure. She looked thin and weak, her skin pale blue with faint glowing marks along her arms. Her large, dark eyes looked at him with a mix of fear and hope. She did not speak, but her lips moved slightly, as if begging silently for help. Jace's heart clenched. He knew hunger and loneliness well. Without thinking twice, he broke off a piece of his last chocolate and held it out to her. The girl's eyes widened, and she took the chocolate with trembling hands. She ate it slowly, savoring each bite like it was the sweetest treasure. Jace smiled softly, feeling warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the cold desert wind. "You don't have to be alone," he said quietly. "I'm Jace." The girl nodded, but still did not speak. She wrapped her thin arms around herself, shivering. Jace noticed her clothes were torn and dirty, far too thin for the chilly nights. "On the colony. Come with me," he said. "There's a shelter nearby. It's not much, but it's safe." As they walked back toward the settlement, Jace tried to learn more about the mysterious girl. She seemed afraid to talk, but her eyes told stories of pain and loss. When he asked her name, she whispered softly, "Ilyra." It was a name unlike any he had heard before, delicate and strange. They reached the small makeshift shelter, a worn-out dome made from scrap metal and old glass panels. Inside, it was warmer and darker. Jace found some blankets and wrapped them around Ilyra's shoulders. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with a mix of gratitude and sadness. He wondered what had happened to her to make her come so far, so alone. Days passed, and Jace and Ilyra formed an unspoken bond. He shared what little food he could find, and she helped by fixing old machines and gathering water. Despite the hardships, something in their companionship gave them hope. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Ilyra revealed a small glowing pendant, hidden beneath her torn shirt. It pulsed with a soft light and had intricate designs that seemed ancient. When Jace asked about it, Ilyra hesitated, then said, "It belonged to my family, but I must keep it secret." He nodded, understanding that she carried a heavy burden. Their fragile peace was shattered one night when loud voices and boots echoed near their shelter. Mining security forces were searching for illegal aliens. Jace grabbed Ilyra's hand, pulling her into the shadows just as the guards approached. His heart pounded fiercely as the cold metal of a weapon pressed against his back. The guards demanded to see any unauthorized persons. Ilyra stayed silent, clutching her pendant tightly. Jace hoped they would not find her suddenly. A guard's gaze fell on the glowing pendant, and his eyes widened in shock. The air grew tense. Jace's mind raced. What did this mean? The girl he had saved was no ordinary stranger. Danger now surrounded them like a tightening noose. As the guards drew closer, ready to drag them away, a sudden explosion rocked the nearby warehouse. Chaos erupted, giving Jace and Ilyra a chance to slip away into the night. But the question burned in Jace's mind. Who was this girl really? And why did the pendant glow so fiercely in the presence of danger? He knew their lives had just changed forever. Jace and Ilyra ran through the narrow alleys, the echo of alarms and shouting still ringing behind them. The glowing pendant on Ilyra's chest pulsed brighter with every step, casting strange shadows on the cracked walls. Jace's breath came in sharp gasps. He glanced at her, noticing the mix of fear and determination in her eyes. Finally, she stopped and faced him. "I cannot hide any more," she whispered. "I must tell you the truth." Ilyra revealed that she was no ordinary alien. She was the last princess of the Yalthar Empire, a once mighty civilization destroyed by war and betrayal. Her people believed her dead, but she had survived in secret, hiding from those who wanted to use or kill her. The pendant was a symbol of her royal bloodline, a key to power that many feared. Jace listened, stunned but unwilling to turn away. He realized the weight of the danger they faced. Their escape became a desperate flight across the colony. The mining security forces had put a bounty on her head, and everyone was hunting for the alien princess. Jace's simple act of kindness had put them both in the crosshairs of a deadly political game far bigger than either of them understood. Yet, amid the threat, trust grew between the human and the alien girl Dot as they reached a hidden landing pad. Jace found an old transport ship. It was small, barely functional, but it was their only chance. With enemies closing in, they climbed aboard and took off into the starry sky. The hum of the engines was weak, and the ship shuddered as they left the colony behind, but safety was far away. Suddenly, a crackling voice over the ship's radio sent chills down Jace's spine. "Warning! Fugitive Princess Ilyra of Yalthar detected. All units, capture immediately." The entire sector was now alerted to their escape. Jace gripped the controls tighter. He looked at Ilyra, her face pale but resolute. "We're not safe yet," he said. "They'll come for us." In that moment, Jace understood that helping Ilyra was no longer just an act of kindness. It was a fight for survival, trust, and maybe something deeper than neither of them expected. Jace's hands trembled as he gripped the controls of the old transport ship. Outside the small viewport, the stars stretched endlessly, cold and indifferent. But inside the cramped cockpit, the tension was suffocating. The warning crackled again over the radio, repeating in a harsh robotic voice, "Fugitive. Princess Ilyra of Yalthar detected. All units capture immediately." They were no longer just fugitives. They were hunted. Ilyra sat beside him, her fingers tightly clutching the glowing pendant that marked her royal bloodline. Her pale blue skin seemed almost luminous under the dim cockpit lights. Despite the danger, she remained quiet, her large dark eyes fixed on the dark space ahead. Jace stole a glance at her. She was young, vulnerable, and yet carried the weight of an entire lost empire. The ship jolted violently as a warning light blinked on the console. "Engine systems failing," Jace muttered, panic rising in his throat. They had been lucky to escape the colony, but this old ship was not built for outrunning armed pursuers in deep space. He knew they had only minutes before the bounty hunters caught up. Suddenly, a shadow appeared on the radar, a sleek mercenary vessel closing in fast. Jace cursed under his breath and yanked the controls, veering sharply toward a nearby asteroid. Field. The ship groaned and shuddered, but it held. "Hang on," Jace said. "This might get rough." Ilyra's eyes widened, and for the first time she spoke clearly. "I have seen this place," she said softly. "On my world, the Yalthar. Use this as a sanctuary. It is dangerous, but it hides the desperate." Jace nodded, gripping the steering wheel tightly. They plunged between the jagged rocks, dodging debris and weaving through narrow gaps. The mercenary ship fired pulses of energy that lit up the darkness, but Jace's desperate maneuvers kept them just out of reach. Sweat poured down his face as he pushed the ship to its limits. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, with a sharp twist, they disappeared into a hidden cave among the asteroids. Secret refuge for smugglers and exiles. The ship's engines faltered and died. Silence fell, broken only by the heavy breathing of the two fugitives. Jace slumped back in his seat. We made it. For now. Ilyra looked at him with gratitude. Thank you, Jace. You risked everything for me. He shook his head, trying to keep his voice steady. I didn't know who you were at first. I just saw someone who needed help. She smiled faintly, but her eyes were shadowed with pain. That is why you are different from many humans I have met. You see beyond fear and hate. Jace wanted to believe her words, but the galaxy was full of distrust. Humans and aliens had been enemies for so long that kindness was rare dot as they explored the hidden space station nestled within the cave. They found a motley community of aliens, humans, and outcasts, all survivors in their own right. The place was rough, with flickering lights and patched walls, but it was a safe haven for those hunted by the powers controlling the galaxy. Ilyra's presence sparked whispers. Some aliens recognized the pendant and bowed their heads in respect. Others eyed her with suspicion. Jace stood by her side, protective and wary. That night, by a flickering fire, Ilyra shared more of her story. The Althar Empire had been a beacon of peace and knowledge, destroyed by greed and war. She was the last hope for her people. If she could reclaim her throne, maybe the endless cycle of violence could end. Jace listened, torn between awe and fear. This was no longer just about survival. It was about a future neither of them fully understood. Their bond deepened, built on trust, shared hardship, and a flicker of hope. But the galaxy was watching. The bounty hunters were relentless, and danger lurked behind every shadow. Suddenly, the refuge's alarms blared. The official visitor had arrived, a human in a spotless uniform claiming to offer safe passage. But his cold smile told a different story. Jace's instincts screamed betrayal dot as guards closed in. Jace grabbed Ilyra's hand. Their fight for freedom was far from over. Jace's heart pounded as the doors of the hidden refuge slammed shut behind the human official. His cold eyes scanned the room, calculating and unreadable. The settlers and rebels who had welcomed Ilyra and Jace now looked tense and uncertain. The official's voice was smooth, almost too polite. You're safe here, he said. But there are those who want to bring order to this chaos. I offer you a chance to return home without bloodshed. Ilyra's eyes narrowed. Why should we trust you? She asked quietly. Jace stood beside her, his hand instinctively brushing against the pendant glowing beneath her torn shirt. The official smiled thinly. Because I serve the coalition, and your presence here threatens the fragile peace we maintain. Ilyra, your bloodline could either unite or destroy entire star systems. It is better for everyone if you come peacefully. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some settlers looked hopeful, others suspicious. Jace's mind raced. He had no illusions about governments. They were often cruel and self-serving. He stepped forward. What's the catch? He asked bluntly. The official's smile faltered. No catch. Just cooperation. Surrender Ilyra, and you will be treated fairly. Ilyra's jaw tightened. I will never surrender to those who destroyed my people. Suddenly, the official gave a sharp whistle. Armed guards burst into the room, surrounding Jace and Ilyra. Panic exploded. Jace grabbed Ilyra's arm and pulled her toward the back exit. Run! He shouted. They sprinted through narrow corridors, alarms blaring. The refuge they had begun to trust was now a trap. Betrayal cut deep. Separated in the chaos, Jace found himself in a cold interrogation cell. The officials wanted information about Ilyra's plans and allies. Hours stretched like years as he faced threats and lies. But he held firm, protecting Ilyra even from behind bars. Meanwhile, Ilyra was taken to a heavily guarded prison ship orbiting a distant planet. Locked away in a sterile cell, she wrestled with despair and rage. Her dreams of reclaiming her throne felt more distant than ever. But even in captivity, hope flickered. Jace's defiance gave her strength. She began to understand that leadership wasn't just about blood, it was about courage and sacrifice. Back on the refuge, whispers spread of a traitor among their ranks, someone feeding information to the coalition. Trust shattered, and suspicion poisoned friendships. Jace and Ilyra's allies struggled to keep the rebellion alive under the growing threat. Jace, desperate and determined, discovered clues pointing to the double agent's identity. The betrayal cut closer than he expected, shaking the fragile hope they had built. Meanwhile, Ilyra made a choice. She would use her royal status not just as a symbol, but as a call to unite the scattered rebels and oppressed alike. Her voice, though silenced for now, would become a beacon. The final twist came as Jace uncovered the double agent's identity, a close friend who had once sworn loyalty. The revelation shattered him. The rebellion's future hung in the balance dot with courage, born from betrayal and love. Jace and Ilyra prepared to fight back. Their trust in each other was their greatest weapon in the war to come. The story now reached a tipping point. Freedom was no longer a distant dream. It was a battle to be won, or a price to be paid forever. Jace's breath came hard and fast as he fought through the crowded corridors of the prison ship. Alarms blared, red lights flashing like warning signals in the dim halls. Every step he took echoed with urgency. This was their moment to escape or be lost forever. The betrayal had cut deep, but it had also sparked a fire in him he didn't know he had. He was no longer just a miner or a stranger. He was a protector, a fighter. Ahead, the heavy steel door guarding Ilyra's cell loomed like an immovable wall. Jace pulled out a stolen access card, his hands shaking as he swiped it. The lock clicked open, and the door slid aside to reveal Ilyra sitting on the cold floor, her glowing pendant dim against the harsh metal walls. Her eyes widened with surprise and relief when she saw him. "We don't have much time," Jace whispered urgently. "I've found friends on the refuge. They're rising up. They're coming for us." Ilyra rose slowly, steadying herself. Against the wall. The weight of her royal bloodline felt heavier now, but also more powerful. Together, they slipped out of the cell and into the chaos. The rebellion had ignited throughout the ship sirens, mixed with the shouts of rebels and guards clashing in battle. Jace and Ilyra moved quickly, avoiding patrols and using hidden passageways. Every corner brought danger, but also hope. As they reached the docking bay, a small squad of rebels stood ready. Their leader, a grizzled alien warrior named Kale, nodded grimly. "We've got your ship prepped, but it won't hold out long," he said. Jace glanced at Ilyra, who gave a determined nod. The escape vessels shuddered as they launched into space, pursued by coalition fighters. The stars streaked by, cold and indifferent, but inside the tiny ship, something warm was growing out. Bond forged in trust, courage, and shared sacrifice. In the tense hours that followed, Jace and Ilyra planned their next move. They would rally the scattered remnants of the Yalthar loyalists and human rebels to challenge the coalition's grip. It was a dangerous path, but their hope was unbreakable. Amid the battle and uncertainty, something more fragile bloomed quiet. Moments where they shared stories, fears, and dreams. Ilyra's alien voice softened as she spoke of her lost home. Jace's steady presence gave her strength she had never known. The final confrontation loomed ahead, but for the first time in a long while, they believed in a future beyond survival. Together, they would rise not just as fugitives, but as leaders of a new era where humans and aliens could stand side by side. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, a mysterious signal pulsed from a distant star system, an invitation or a warning. Their journey was far from over, but whatever came next, they would face it together. Jace's breath hitched as the heavy steel door slid open, revealing Ilyra sitting quietly on the cold metal floor of her cell. The dim light flickered above her, casting shadows on the walls and making the small glow of her pendant seem even brighter in the darkness. When their eyes met, a flicker of relief softened her usually guarded expression. She rose slowly, her slender frame trembling slightly from weeks of captivity and hunger. Jace hurried inside, pulling the door shut behind them. "We don't have much time," he whispered urgently, glancing nervously down the empty corridor. "The rebels, they're rising up. We need to move before the guards regain control." Ilyra nodded, her eyes steady but fierce. "Then we must be swift. The future of my people, and maybe the galaxy, depends on this." Together, they slipped through the narrow corridors, careful to avoid patrols. The air was thick with the scent of oil and fear. Distant shouts echoed as the rebellion spread like wildfire through the prison ship. The sound of clashing metal and blaster fire grew louder as they neared the docking bay. Jace's heart pounded with every step, but the presence of Ilyra beside him gave him strength he didn't know he had. As they rounded a corner, a group of rebels appeared, human and alien alike, armed and determined. At their head stood Kale, a grizzled alien warrior with scars crisscrossing his face and eyes that spoke of too many battles fought and lost. "About time," Kale grunted, nodding to Jace. "The ship's ready, but we don't have much time before the Coalition sends reinforcements." Jace helped Ilyra into the small escape vessel waiting in the bay. The cramped cockpit hummed with the sound of primed engines, old but reliable. As the hatch closed behind them, Jace glanced at Ilyra. Her expression was calm, but her fingers clenched the pendant tightly, a symbol of hope and responsibility. The engines roared to life, and the vessel lurched forward, breaking free from the prison ship's gravity. Outside the viewport, streaks of laser fire lit up the dark expanse of space. Coalition fighters swarmed like angry hornets, pursuing them relentlessly. Jace's hands danced over the controls, weaving the ship through asteroid fields and debris. With a desperation born of survival, the tension inside the cockpit was thick, broken only by whispered words and the occasional crackle of the radio as rebels communicated their positions and plans. Ilyra leaned closer to Jace, her voice soft but determined. "This fight is bigger than me. It is about all who dream of freedom." Jace nodded, his eyes never leaving the stars ahead. "And I'm with you, whatever comes next." As they evaded the Coalition forces, moments of quiet passed between them, moments where the weight of their mission lifted, replaced by a fragile hope. Ilyra shared stories of her lost empire, of a world filled with light and wisdom now buried beneath war and darkness. Jace spoke of his simple life on the mining colony, of dreams he thought long dead. Their shared vulnerability deepened their bond, transforming fear into trust and trust into something more tender. The stars outside might be cold and distant, but inside that small ship, a new future was being born. Hours later, with the immediate danger behind them, they plotted their next move. The galaxy was vast, and all eyes were scattered, but Ilyra's bloodline was a beacon for those longing for change. Together, they would seek out the loyalists and rebels willing to stand with them, human and alien alike. Suddenly, the ship's sensors picked up a faint, rhythmic pulse coming from a distant star system. It was unlike any known signal, a mysterious invitation, or perhaps a warning. Jace stared at the blinking light, a chill running down his spine. Whatever lay ahead, their journey was far from over, but for the first time, facing the unknown together, They believed they could change the fate of the stars. *The End.